Command and Conquer Red Alert is a strategy game released for the PlayStation 1 in 1998.
Unit ready.
The game is set in an alternate universe where Albert Einstein goes back in time to eliminate Hitler before he can come to power. This creates a new timeline where the Soviet Union becomes the main enemy of the free world, and a global conflict ensues between the Allied and Soviet forces. But it is also considered overrated. While the game had a fantastic storyline, the gameplay was often repetitive and lacked the same level of innovation as other strategy games of its time. The graphics were also outdated by the time of its release, and the controls were clunky and difficult to master. Furthermore, while Red Alert had an extensive single-player campaign, the multiplayer component was lacking. The game did not offer many options for online play, leaving players with limited options for competitive play. In conclusion, while Command and Conquer Red Alert had its merits and was a popular game at the time of its release, it is now considered overrated due to its repetitive gameplay, outdated
Warcraft
graphics,
2: The Dark Saga
controls,
is a strategy
and
game
limited
released for the
PlayStation
PlayStation
1 in 1997. It is set in a fictional fantasy world where players control armies of humans, orcs, and other mythical creatures. The game is split into two campaigns, one for each faction, and includes a variety of missions that require players to build and defend their bases, gather resources, and conquer enemy territories. Despite its popularity and critical acclaim, Warcraft 2: The Dark Saga is considered one of the 8 overrated strategy games. The game is limited by the hardware of the console, which results in slow gameplay and poor graphics. Additionally, the game lacks the depth and complexity of other strategy games, making it repetitive and predictable. Finally, the AI of the game is flawed, with the computer-controlled opponents often making illogical choices and failing to provide a challenging experience. The Dark Saga was a popular game in its time. It has not aged well and is no longer considered a top-tier strategy game.
Ready to work.
Dune 2000 is a real-time strategy game that was released on the PlayStation 1 in 1998. The game is set in a fictional universe where 3 warring factions are fighting for control of a planet called Dune.
Commander.
Players must build and manage their own base, gather resources, and train units to defeat their enemies. Despite its popularity among fans of the Dune franchise, Dune 2000 is considered one of the overrated strategy games largely due to its lack of innovation and the fact that it was a rehash of the original Dune game, which was released in 1992. The game's graphics and sound were also criticized for being outdated and unimpressive compared to other games released at the time. While Dune 2000 may have been a fun and engaging game when it was first released, it simply didn't stand the test of time.
Commander.
With so many other, more innovative strategy games available on the PlayStation 1, it's difficult to justify the game's inclusion the Rise in the list of great strategy games for the original Age of Empires game. It adds new features such as 4 new civilizations and new units. The game is set in ancient Rome and players must build their own empire, gather resources and train armies to conquer other civilizations. The game is considered overrated for several reasons. First, it has a steep learning curve that can be difficult for beginners. Second, the AI is not very challenging and can quickly become predictable. Third, the graphics and sound effects are outdated compared to newer strategy games. Finally, the game lacks the depth and complexity that other popular strategy games have. Despite its popularity, Age of Empires: The Rise of Rome is not one of the best strategy games on PS1. Civilization 2 is a turn-based strategy game released for PS1 in 1999. The game starts with the player choosing a civilization to lead from ancient times to the future. The player must manage resources, research technology, build cities, and engage in diplomacy and warfare with other civilizations. The goal is to conquer the world by achieving one of several victory conditions. Civilization 2 is considered one of the overrated strategy games on PS1 because while it was a groundbreaking game when it first came out, the graphics and interface are outdated and clunky, and the game can be slow-paced and repetitive. Additionally, the AI can be predictable and easy to beat, making the game less challenging over time. While it still has a loyal fan base, newer strategy games have surpassed Civilization 2 in terms of gameplay, graphics, and overall enjoyment. StarCraft is a science fiction real-time strategy video game that was released in 1998. The game is set in the future, where 3 different species battle for dominance. The Terrans, Zerg, and the player takes on the role of a leader for one of these species, building bases and armies, gathering resources, and battling their opponents in order to come out on top. Despite its popularity and acclaim, StarCraft is considered by some to be one of the overrated strategy games on the PS1. This is because while the game has a lot of strengths, it also has some flaws that may make it less enjoyable for some players.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Your forces are under attack.
For example, the game's graphics and interface may feel outdated to modern players, and the game's balance can be unforgiving at times.
Can I take your order? Go ahead.
Additionally, the campaign can be repetitive and the story may not be engaging enough to hold players' interest. Overall, while StarCraft is a classic and beloved game, it may not be the best choice for everyone due to its flaws and limitations. Heroes of Might and Magic 3 is a strategy game where players control a hero and an army to conquer lands and defeat enemies, where players take turns moving their units and engaging in battles. The goal is to build and manage towns, recruit and upgrade units, and explore the game world. Despite its popularity, Heroes of Might and Magic 3 is considered overrated for several reasons. Firstly, the game's graphics and sound are outdated compared to modern strategy games. Secondly, the gameplay can become repetitive and predictable. Lastly, the game's AI is not challenging enough, leading to a lack of difficulty and strategic depth. Overall, Heroes of Might and Magic 3 may have been a groundbreaking game when it was first released, but it has since been surpassed by newer strategy games. Total Annihilation is a real-time strategy game released on the PlayStation 1 in 1999. In this game, players control armies of robots and engage in battles with other players or computer-controlled opponents. The game is considered one of the most overrated strategy games on PS1 for several reasons. First, while it was popular at the time of release, it has not aged well and does not hold up to modern standards. The game has a steep learning curve and can be difficult for new players to grasp. Finally, while the game has a variety of units and weapons to choose from, the gameplay can become repetitive and lacks the depth of other strategy games. Despite its flaws, Total Annihilation still holds a special place in the hearts of many gamers who remember it fondly from their childhoods.